Welcome everyone. It's Paul here with Business Club, and a special guest today is Karen Stillman with Sacred Spaces Studio. Karen Stillman is a transformational life coach. She delights in helping people and businesses achieve greater well-being by realizing their own potential. She did this herself when she was faced with health challenges in 2012, thinking those challenges were insurmountable and that continuing in her chosen field of obstetrics and gynecology impossible. Karen did the one thing that she could do with what she had at the time. She closed her practice. Over the next 2 years, Karen's body healed itself through more energetic means than any Western medicine modalities. Karen gained greater understanding that the universal success principles were at the root of her newfound well-being. She realized that these concepts were actually the foundation of how she was practicing and treating her clients. Never amazed and always truly delighted, Karen happily serves several groups, including couples who struggle with their fertility, people looking to make changes in their own well-being, career, and relationships, and corporations seeking improved wellness and productivity through healthier, happier staff. And I first met Karen through Toastmasters at Collab Space, and we were in the same group for a couple of years. I know Karen is now in a different Toastmaster group, but Karen also recently participated in the Adapt and Overcome e-conference in the section of Body, Mind, and Spirit. So welcome, Karen. So great looking forward to your presentation today, and I'll let you take it away.
Thanks so much, Paul. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and sharing this information with everybody. And it's not always easy navigating different situations and circumstances and conditions. So it's a delight to be able to share some tools and tips with you guys today and how we can do that. And I'd just like to let people know that actually we all have superpowers. And every one of us has these, and we can lean into these and use these to help us stay calm while we navigate the COVID-19 situation or condition. And first, let's take a moment and get centered and grounded. Lean into our breath. And when we turn on that rest digest mode, and if you're not sure how to do that, it's slowing down the breath. We want to move from that freeze, fight, and flight mode into that rest, digest, and create mode. And we can do that simply with our breath. Nice, slow, deep inhale, pausing for 2 counts at the top. And then a nice, slow exhale, like you're breathing out a straw. When you do 4 to 6 of these, you can really get centered, really get grounded, so that you can tune in and become expansive and think more, get into that positive mindset. We see a lot of that on Facebook and all around that, well, just stay positive. And the people ask, how? We're not sure what to do. Well, the what to do is leaning into your breath. So using the rectangle breath where you breathe in across the top. If your breath inhale is only 3 or 4 counts, then notice that. Pause for 1 count or 2. But when you exhale, breathe out like you're breathing through a straw. Nice and slow. And if you can, when you get to do a few more, you'll learn that you can pause at the end of the exhale. And this really turns you into the present moment, into the now, and helps set you up for that great success. We all have one mind, and I would just like to connect with the 2 key concepts about the 2 superpowers that we all have. And the first one is that thought energy is the most potent form of energy, so that our thoughts, we don't get an opportunity to not think. We all have that ability to think, and we don't have a choice not to think. It's how and what you think about, as the Turner phrase says, what you think about, you bring about. So that thought energy, where you're thinking, that energy will flow to where your attention is. So if your attention is on the news and what's going on around you, and you lean into a lot of that, and they're talking about concerns and fears and the economy, then you're going to feel those feelings. And let me just ask you, if I asked you to say, what is what's your mind? What picture comes to you when I ask you to visualize your mind? Most people will have that picture of a brain. But truly, we just have one mind, and we're all connected with that one universal consciousness. And when we lean into our breath, we have that opportunity to connect. And when I went on my yoga teacher training in 2016, after I closed my office, I really learned how to connect with my breath. I realized that most of us do shallow breathe. We don't get down to the very depths of our lungs, to that deepest part of ourselves, that deepest part of our lung capacity. And when we connect to the deeper parts of our lungs, we connect to the deeper part of our brain and our heart. Not so much the heart as it pumps our blood through an anatomy type of way, but to that heart-centered, energetic experience. So that's really, really important. And the other thing is with the thought energy is that everything is created twice. Everything was first a thought before it became a thing. When you think about it, most of us kind of know that. You know, you thought about what you were going to wear, then you picked out your outfit, but go back even further. Everything was first a thought before it became a thing. The chairs, the computer, it's all been a thought before it became a thing. Airplanes, travel by air. Someone created that idea in their mind, and then they were able to create it in form. We can do that with all our results. It's really, really important. Most of us kind of think we know this and are aware of this, but do you really know the power of this? The power of knowing that what you think, you can bring about. You may not know the how. You don't need to know the how. But if you hold that attention to that thought and lean into that, and I'm going to talk about how to stay calm with an acronym, you're going to use a few different tools on how to keep moving in the direction of creating what you would love. And the other piece of this is that with your thoughts, no one can make you think a thought without your permission. So if you're feeling thoughts of constrictive, down, oh, I had an argument with my spouse and I'm feeling bad about that, well, that's your choice. Every situation, every condition is actually neutral until we assign whether or not it's going to be good or bad. You have that ability. So no one can make you think a thought without your permission. So we want to make sure that we're choosing positive thoughts, positive energy. The words that we use even describe that. We have a word that is in our language that is commonly used as a noun, as a verb, as an adverb, as an adjective, and it loses a lot of meaning. Precision, clarity of words will help move into more positive results. So this is one of your superpowers, is your thinking power. What you think, what you choose to think about, you get to create. Your next superpower is a power phrase, and that is shifting whatever you're feeling. If you're feeling stuck, it's turning on that internal pause button so that you can say, I am more than that. So when I was feeling frustrated with my kids, having 2 years before I closed my office, I was having a lot of challenges with some back pain, trying to lean into what was going on with my health. My kids at 12 and 15 decided they wanted to move with their dad in Newfoundland, which is really far away from the Ottawa Valley area. And my daughter, she's just 12 years old, like my little girl, my baby's leaving. And they went for a year. I thought she'd be back, and no, they didn't. And over that time frame, I noticed that my thyroid mild condition became much more extreme. My back pain became worse. My adrenal glands started to shut down. I wasn't able to sleep. I was on pain medications for my back, narcotics when I wasn't on call, sometimes sleep aids, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs when I was on call so that I could function and be able to work. And it was most challenging. And if I didn't have someone say to me, you know, Karen, you're more than that. And leaning in, having that unconscious competence to know some of the principles that I've since learned and been able to put into an organized system to create repeatable success, this is at the core of that. I am more than that. You are more than that. You are more capable than any condition or situation or circumstance, and in the health field, even any diagnosis. You are more than that. And when I learned this repeatable, proven system, I realized that, yes, I was doing that heart-centered practice with my patients. I was utilizing a lot of these tools, but I was just not as conscious of how to put that all together in a nice organized package. And when you realize that you are more than that, you realize that you're connected. You're connected like we're connected with the internet. When you have your computer hooked up, you're connected to an infinite resource, Google or whatever platform you use. You can ask a question and get an answer. You can get 6 million answers in 0.03 of a second. Did you realize that when you ask a more specific question, you get a more specific answer when you put that into Google? Same with our thoughts. Imagine that what we can do with the computer is only a fraction of what we are actually as well doing with our thoughts, linking us to the universe, linking us to all the other minds across the globe. You are more than that. So these are our two superpowers: taking a moment, noticing our breath, getting into the current moment, because you can only live in the current moment, the now. And the now is also called the present. So when you think about it, what are presents? They're gifts. So the gift of the now, of living in the now, is really more important than looking back on our past. And if you feel that you're stuck in that or that situation and you can't get out of that, take that moment, superpower number one, lean into your breath, think what you're thinking, and then notice that I am more than that. And if you want a few additional tools on how to do that, I've created that acronym on how to stay calm during COVID-19. And the first letter is C. So we're looking at the challenges, those conditions, the situations or the circumstances that we're facing. There's a lot on the news. Things were very dynamic the first 3 or 4 weeks. It's settling down a little bit now, but daily there was insurmountable amounts of information. And if you tune into a lot of that and spent hours in front of that, did you feel your shoulders getting tight and feeling, just hunched over and feeling unwell and not able to take a big breath? And when you stepped away from that, did you have an opportunity to just be quiet for a few minutes and go and take that breath and notice how you feel? And then realize that I have choices. So move from the challenges and into choices. What choices do you have? Because we all have choices. It's what are we going to do with them? What would you love to create? And notice that when you get into a calm moment, so using the same C for calm for our acronym, when you're calm, you will hear that voice of insight, that knowledge, that source energy. Whether you believe in God as a higher power, look at it as the great overall designer. Whatever that is, that higher power that speaks to you and lets you know that, oh, well, I'm going to go outside for work this morning and you're grabbing an umbrella and then you stop. Why am I grabbing an umbrella? I look out, it's sunny. I looked at the forecast 15 minutes ago and it said it was going to be sunny. And you logically put that umbrella back in the closet and go out about your day. And while you're out on your day, there is this isolated, instantaneous little rainstorm that comes up and you get a downpour onto you. Well, something told you that. You knew that. So when we're calm, we can move into being aware of the choices that we have so that we can create what we would love to create. So in making your choices, are you going to read the conditions and circumstances and situations that are going on around you like a thermometer? Or are you going to take that control panel from the thermostat and make those choices and design what it is that you would love? Second letter in our CALM acronym is A, agreements. Are you presently making agreements with what's going on with the COVID-19 or any other challenge that you're facing? So with the COVID-19, there's lots of information. Are you leaning into, oh my gosh, well, what is the mortality rate? And, well, the mortality rate is quite low when you look at the things. Maybe it's not low as a reflection of how you perceive it, but when you look at something that's, less than 10%, so lean into that 90%. But that's for a population. Individual information's from facts. may not be the truth for you. So facts for a population may not be reflected on your individual situation. I noticed that especially when I was working and practicing in medicine. People would lean into their diagnosis and, oh, well, well, with this condition, I'm pregnant, and, so many % of women have C-sections, and I don't want to have a C-section, and so many % of women have forceps delivery, and I don't want that. Well, they're making agreements with that because their attention, they're focusing on that. Where your thoughts go, the energy will flow. So if you're making agreements with those facts, what's the truth about you? I am more than that. Being calm, what are your choices? What would you lean into? And when you think into those, what actions can you take? So we want to lean into what actions you can take. So be aware of the facts versus the truth. So my 5 senses will tell me a lot of facts: what I hear, what I see, what I smell, what I taste, what I touch. When I look at a railroad track, if I look at that and I didn't know better, it looks to me like those railroad tracks are going to cross somewhere down in the distance. Well, have you ever walked railroad tracks? They don't do that. Yes, maybe different lines will cross over each other. But for a train to go down the track, not just 12, 15, 16 kilometers in the distance, if you can see along the horizon, but 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers down the road, those rails don't cross. But I can see that they look like they're going to cross. So the truth is different than what the facts will say. So in this time, we can look at with COVID-19 for you and your business. For example, there may be challenges. The facts are businesses are closing, people are letting go of staff. There's all sorts of financial ramifications from that. But really, what's the truth? Lean into being calm and quiet. What would you love to create? Listen to what you can put your attention on, and then you're going to get those choices so that with the truth, you can take different actions. So are you going to make agreements with what's going on? Or are you going to lean into the action that you can take? For example, all my workshops were in person prior to the COVID-19. I had it in my vision that I was going to be, one of my goals, that I was going to be working with webinars 2021, maybe 2022. Up until now, technology hasn't been as easy as I would have loved for it to be. So navigating it has been a challenge. So I've put it off, and I really put a lot of energy to the in-person and that connection of in-person. Well, I pivoted my business to doing my presentations online. And yes, has it been easy? No. But have I been interested in doing that? And have I worked to learn that and been leaning into my breath to be calm so that I can pivot? And you can too. You may not know exactly how, but start taking action and leaning into opportunities to think about that, reflect on that. Because if you're being busy with being busy, then you're not going to have time to reflect. The next letter is L, and that's your life. What kind of life are you living? Are you trying to figure out how to exist right now and survive COVID-19? Well, that puts you, those words put you in that freeze, fight, and flight. A lot of people talk about the crisis because of COVID-19. Well, did you know that in Chinese, the word crisis, depending on when you read it in a sentence, is the same word for problem as it is for opportunity. So how are you living your life? Is it existing and surviving? Or are you actually living a life that you love? And you can add years to your life, but are you adding life to your years? Are you living that same year over and over again? Some people will live that 1 year over, 99 times and have a long life. But did they have a life that they love? Or would you like to live a full and expansive life and lean into what you would love? And we're all going to get the next 365 days to create what we would, something in our life. Now, do you want to do it by default based on the conditions and the circumstances of what's going on in the economy with COVID-19 and leaning into that? Or would you like to design what you would love? You have that opportunity. So are you going to be in that constricted state where you're not going to get those ideas, that you're not going to be able to lean into what you would love? Or are you going to think about, take a few moments, as I said, to be calm, quiet, breath, look at those actions and lean into thinking, ask the question, what would I love? What would you love? I know what I would love with my business, with my health, with my relationships as we navigate this time and my time and money freedom. You can lean into that and you can still create a life that you would love. Know that in the Great Depression in the United States, there were more billionaires per capita created during that time than any other time in the United States history. This is an opportunity. What would you love? The M in the calm is your mindset. Now, mindset is a great word, but when you break that down, there's the mind where we're connected to so many people, to the infinite intelligence as well, all the resources that everyone on the earth has and everyone on the earth have had to date, all that mind connection, but is it set, fixed? Are you stuck where you are? Set in your ways. Because if your mind set is on one level and you're not readjusting it to a more freer, fuller, more expansive level that can create more happiness for you, you're not going to be able to move and shift during this time. So we want to look at what our mindset is. Notice what our values are, what our beliefs are, and are they true for us? Have we adopted them for something else? Or were they true for us prior to this time? Perhaps now is a good time to take that opportunity to reflect if you haven't had that opportunity to do so. Because it's very natural to have a freer, fuller, more expansive life. We have that spiral pull to the more, and it's natural. Not that you're not happy with what you have and giving gratitude, being thankful for what you have, but we always have that pull to the more. And when you look out into nature, a plant, the mighty oak tree just didn't happen overnight. The mighty oak tree releases acorns, and not all of them are going to produce another mighty oak tree. But when they're in the right environment, so the soil is good, the water is good, it's not around a lot of weeds, not stomped on and stepped on, that environment is right. And over time, it grows and it grows. And when you live in Canada, for example, we have that winter time that we're back into this morning where we have this pause. And it's okay to have a pause. But notice that later on in the spring, every year, that tree grows more. It reaches higher and bigger. And you have that in you too. Our DNA is a spiral and it pulls us up to the more. We live in an abundant universe, and you can lean into that. So would you love to have a fixed mindset and stay where you are and just ride it out, survive it? Or would you like to lean into what you would love, having that more and welcoming it with open hands, open arms, being willing to receive that? What would you love? What would you love? So to stay calm during COVID-19, it's really important to think of the choices that you have, the actions that you're going to take. What is that life that you would love to live? And have more. It's totally natural to have that freer, fuller life that you would love to have. And leaning into the superpowers that you have. Yeah. That's me in my Superwoman cape, and I'm using my thinking. I'm using my thinking to my advantage. I, for a long time now, have not tuned into the news. I listen to a little bit maybe in the car or on the radio. My husband listens to it a lot more. But I never watched the news after I moved out of home when I went to university. I found it then even very constrictive. We got rid of cable here almost 2.5 years ago. So we actually don't even watch the news. I might flip through a newspaper or a magazine. So I assimilate a little bit of news along the way, and the few things that I'm interested in, I will do some research on the computer. But I don't lean into a lot of the other stuff because I don't want to have that constrictive state. If you go back and look at the Time magazine covers back to the 1970s, there were covers on the economy and pollution and doctoring, the economy and, medicine. What's it really doing to us? Those covers on the Time magazine could be the same as 1970s as they could be in the 1920s, 19 teens, or 20 teens rather. And when we put our attention on the negative, the things that are not helping us to grow and become more, lean into that, we're going to stay stuck. So what can you do for yourself? Change your thinking. Be impeccable with your words. Know that what you think about, you can create, whether it's positive or negative. And if you're feeling stuck, put the pause on the thinking, turn to your breath and realize and remember and say to yourself, say it out loud, I am more than that. I am more than that. You are more than that. And you have these superpowers that can take you anywhere that you would love to go. Napoleon Hill, I love this quote. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Just like the laws of farming, and I mentioned the oak tree, if we look into nature and how that goes, they don't have choices. They don't have a consciousness to make different choices. Animals work by instinct and plants do their own thing as well. So if we look at that, how that is happening, we can learn from that. Napoleon Hill said, how many adversities? Every. How many failures or perceived failures? Every. How many heartaches? Every. Every single one of them carries with it the seed, an opportunity of equal or greater benefit. So to close, I would like to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. I'd like to thank Paul for this wonderful opportunity to share some of this mindset opportunities that you can use to help pivot, shift, change what's going on, either with your business, you can do it with your health, you can do it with your family life, other relationships, and your time and money freedom. It works in all the domains of your life. I have workshops that can lean into that generally, my vision workshop, and more currently the standing firm while your world is shaking. If you feel that this time of your life really is really constructive for you, I have these free webinars that I'm happy to share any other information, other tidbits and tools. I've shared some other different principles today, and I share different ones in those. And I would love to help anybody out. That's what I'm here to do. That's what my calling is. That's what my gift is, to serve to all of you. And I thank Paul so very much for giving me this opportunity today to share some of these tidbits so that you can create that life that you'd love to live. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Karen. This is a wonderful presentation, and it's great to delve deeper into what you presented at the Adapt and Overcome e-conference. Now, you and I are both big fans of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich philosophy. I did want to get your thoughts on, he has one item on there called sexual transmutation. And it's pretty fascinating. I've seen some other local entrepreneurs also run a workshop they call Sex Magic. And I also am a believer in using, certain energies to become creative, to pursue your creativity. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that because I've seen a lot of different interpretations of sexual transmutation. Some have actually taken it quite literally, and in fact have actually, like with, for example, the Sex Magic one, they actually associate where you actually pleasure yourself and think about money flowing into you, right, as you're having your orgasm or whatever like that. So it's really, but there's that side, or there's the one that you think of more like, okay, I'm just using that energy, that sexual energy, to become creative and to, reinvent myself. And there's, I think Napoleon Hill used the example of, there's a bull that gets, the difference between a regular bull and the bull that gets castrated in their behavior. The bull that's castrated becomes very placid and very, calm and whatever, but versus those. So I want to see what your thoughts on that Napoleon Hill concept, see how you interpret that.
Well, when you think about that, let's start a phase back. When you kiss somebody, you're really into that moment. You're into the now. So you're really truly connected. And most people running about their lives don't get connected to really that higher power, that greatness, that infinite intelligence So they're connected at those moments, and they still may not even realize what messages or information they're getting at that time. Because when you look at the statistics and the information, is that 80% of people have negative, have thoughts that are, 80% of people's thoughts are negative during the course of a day. So we're not thinking expansively as much as we really could, and we really only use a fraction of our brain. And that's when the time when we actually have that opportunity to become connected. So whether you're leaning into that at that moment and utilizing that as your source, you actually have other tools to be able to get into that. Edison didn't use that type of energy when he got into that theta state, so that he could, it's that thought, that brainwave frequency from where you are in your active activity state to calm state to the theta state, where you receive the messages from the intuition and the higher organization of how we are here today, to the sleep state. So getting into that state. So that seems to be a time when a few people actually can recognize and be aware of that. So yeah, some people, it's a niche, it's an interesting concept to utilize that to actually do all the other thinking, but you can do that with your breath. It takes a lot of work. The other thing, I believe the quote came from Henry Ford, thinking is one of the hardest things that people will do, and that's why so seldom few actually engage in it, because you can't not think. It's just how you direct your thought, how much focus, how much control can you have over that at the time to really put the attention on something that you would love to create and asking the right question. So at that moment of when you're looking at that orgasm, thoughts and things have that opportunity to slip in when people are not aware, because they're not putting up their other thought boundaries. Basically, they're not putting up the walls around them. They're let down so that they can receive all the information input. So if you're so focused on that act, you may not be aware of that. But if you have a portion of your mind open to something else, you've seeded a question early on in the day or the few days before, perhaps that's how that comes about. But you can channel that energy at other times. It just requires a different level of work and focus.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. The next thing I wanted to ask you about or share is, now you talk a lot about mindset and using mindset to as a power to accomplish what you want to in life, and it may be you know, in Napoleon Hill the idea is also bringing about wealth. So I wanted to ask you about there's so much you can do to improve your own mindset, but for those looking to build their wealth, ultimately money comes from other people's pockets, right? So there has to be, in order to build wealth, you obviously have to be able to work with other people, to build relationships and what have you. So on that, and it's more of like the action, right? The stage, and you know, where you have your great mindset, you're ready to, you know, become, you know, create your $1 million business, but then it's like the action. So and that can be very complex, right? Like to build your wealth, I mean, you got to have a great marketing strategy, great sales strategy. You know, it's like the business part of things. So what are your thoughts about, you know, putting that mindset into action in order to achieve that wealth? Because at the end of the day, the money that wealth that you achieve is going to have to come from other people's pockets, right? So what?
Well, yeah, thanks, Paul. There's always an abundance. There is, it's not like you're taking money from people who can't afford to purchase a product, for example, or buy a service. When you say wealth, and to me, wealth is different from increasing my financial net worth, right? So I look at wealth and abundance as my whole well-being, with my health, my relationships, satisfaction in my career and vocation, and having that time and money freedom. You can't box that into only one area. So if you are not feeling wealth and abundance in your relationships, you're going to find it hard and challenging to be able to receive that as well in your business. So you need to look at all aspects of your life It's not, you talked about marketing strategies and other sort of things. Those are quite specific when you get into an area of the different strategies to do that. But you have to have a wealth overall mindset of abundance. And that wealth mindset can be also rephrased as being a person of increase. And when you are a person of increase and sharing that with every interaction that you have, abundance flows to you, whether it's in the energetic form of money or improved relationships and improved well-being and improved health. So you stem the flow of the wealth and abundance and that flow of the energy of the money coming to you when you don't have an abundant mindset in all areas of your life.
Okay, so thanks for sharing that. Now, I wanted to ask you, Karen, about your personal journey from being a doctor to starting your own business. And our perception of doctors is they make a lot of money, and you know, they go through so many years of schooling. You know, you invest so much time and energy to achieve that. But part of what I wanted to ask you about is almost like also living in Canada with our health system, because I had another friend who's she's an eye doctor, and she got into the business too, just because of the frustration with the red tape and you know, the limitations in terms of what she could bill her clients for and the high cost of the licensing. And you know, she was telling me about that. She go get her hair cut, and her barber was actually making more income than she was as a, you know, an eye doctor. So she ended up going into quitting her career as an eye doctor, going to pharmaceuticals. So how do you feel about, you know, our Canadian healthcare system, and also wanted to ask you about your journey from being a doctor to you know, starting your own business?
Well, I get asked that a lot, Paul. Thanks. It's not uncommon. A lot of people rolled their eyes, shook their heads, like, "Why are you throwing away a great career?" And it's only great if it makes you feel great. If you don't love what you're doing, stop. End of story. You have to love what you're doing. And I had that speak to me when I was in grade 10. Obstetrician gynecologist. I was in a biology class learning how cells divide, meiosis and mitosis. I didn't hear about research or this or that or the other thing. That's what I heard. And I leaned into that and I loved it. I had great time. I mean, it was challenging to learn, challenging to get there. I didn't know all the steps, but I achieved that. And it was really important for me because that's one step of my journey. And I realized partway through that there was some discontent and I wasn't sure.